The Ogush Show with Vinita. Get inspired, get involved. On Taranga, it's your wavelength. Hello and welcome, beautiful people. Yes, it's me, your host Vinita. Hope you've been waiting for this moment as much as I have. I feel like now I have a connection with you listeners. So let's start another brand new episode of the Ogush Show on Taranga. It's your wavelength. I would like to start by saying a big thanks, like I always do. So, a big thanks for all you listeners on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, mails, and Skype. So, let's jump right in and start our segment with focus, as me and Lalita talk to you about focus. And then we move on to our very special segment, the inspiration icons, where we talk to two amazing guests this episode. So what are we waiting for? Let's jump right in. Joining me is our very own blogger Lalita Kakulapati. So listeners, let's talk a little bit about focus today. What exactly does it mean? Focus is that point of concentration when you give all your attention and direct it to one particular task. Multitasking may be helpful, but when you're doing trivial things and when you need to do important stuff on your projects, you need to focus.
That's very true. We live in the age of multitasking. It has become so important to show everyone how many things we can handle at one time. But it's not always productive. We end up getting a lot less done than we expected. And that creates a lot of stress. It becomes, a sort of downward spiral in the end.
Yeah, and for anything creative, like writing in your case, or blogging, or anything creative for any kind of designers, you need to really pinpoint focus and be at that moment present.
Of course. And I guess, even parents who plan their kids' activities need to focus, or the kids will end up being a handful. So jokes apart, focus is important for executives too, not only creative types, because they have to plan and create proposals and reports, etc. And also for people in the teaching segment, for teachers and professors, because they have to set the syllabus and the exam papers for the students.
Yeah, speaking of students, there's another set of people who absolutely need to focus to succeed in today's competitive environment.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why we need to give more importance to focus and less to multitasking. Because in the race to see who can multitask better, we tend to forget about the actual work being done. So it's important to concentrate on the task at hand, and the digital age can be very distracting because social media is so addictive.
Absolutely. Like we just keep checking Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And while I say that, listeners, feel free to check our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But when you're doing a task, it's better to keep all this away.
Yes, being connected is actually an addiction. You get addicted to it. When you check email and get a new message, it's that little bit of validation that we're worthy of somebody else's attention. That's why we're getting an email. And so we get a little ego boost and a little pleasure. And then we check our Twitter and our feed reader and something grabs our attention. It's, a little bit of reward for checking. And so we check again and again and again. And then we are addicted to it.
Well, then we should get out of all this habit and get into our smartphones at every second we have. Even during our conversations or gatherings, whenever we take a small break, we just tend to, go to our smartphones and check for any updates. Maybe an actual conversation would be better than a series of tweets and retweets.
Oh, perfectly true. And, there's also this perception that we have to get away completely and take an overseas vacation or something to truly disconnect. It's not true. We can disconnect right where we are, of course, but after the show. So you can, disconnect for an hour every day, turn off your computer and your phone, maybe go for a run or make coffee, go meet a friend, write in my case, read the newspaper or a book, whatever. I mean, do what you do and only that, and you'll find that your work is amazing.
Absolutely. In fact, one of the viral videos that I absolutely like these days is the disconnect to connect. And listeners, if you are listening to this, you should check out the YouTube video for it's a Thailand ad which says disconnect to connect. And let's talk a little more about the benefits of disconnecting. Like for starters, you shut off the interruptions and distractions of email, Twitter, and blog. You give yourself more space to work and you can accomplish a lot more.
Yes, you can also allow yourself a break from the stress of overload, and you can find some quiet and peace of mind and reflect, and you can contemplate and you get into a better state of mind for the rest of the day at least.
Absolutely. That's all very nice to talk about, but how do we actually do it?
No, it's terribly difficult to implement. If you want to just simply disconnect, you should just unplug. Unplug your network connector, unplug your cables, turn off your router, go to your settings and disable it or whatever. Close your browser. Most importantly, close your browser so you can actually focus on something without getting into Facebook and Twitter.
But we can't just unplug whenever we want in our busy day. So to do this, we need to fix a particular time, distraction free time, and it's just like setting the office hours. If you're a professor, you set the times in your busy schedule that you let everyone know that this is your time and you are disconnecting to connect to yourself.
Yes, you can also try working somewhere without a connection, like a library or a coffee shop without free Wi-Fi. That rules out Starbucks. Sorry, folks. But the best thing is to just get outside. Leave your devices behind and go for a walk or a bike ride. Enjoy nature. Watch a sunset, go to the beach or a forest. Take your child or a spouse or your friends. Recharge your batteries, not your device's batteries, and reflect and contemplate.
The best thing to do is to get disconnected after work. Make a point to leave work where it belongs, in the office. Or office hours for those who work from home or other places. Make a rule, for example, after 5 p.m., I won't be connected. I'll focus on my family and my other interests. So you can limit the distractions when you are connected so that the disturbances are minimized. We can also develop a need to respond to many things such as email, tweets, or social network updates, phone calls, text messages, and a lot more. This need to respond gives us anxiety until we have responded. But unfortunately, there is no end to these things and it's non stop. So stop allowing these things to require your response. You do not need to reply to every message immediately. You do not need to like and comment on every picture and status message.
Well, Henry David Thoreau said it's not enough to be busy, so are the ants. The question is, what are we busy about? We almost live in our email inboxes. Our work is there, and it's where we communicate, keep track of tasks, do our work, and organize ourselves. But unfortunately, it's not really the best way to live and work. You're constantly getting interrupted by new messages, and so you're at the mercy of the requests of others. A new email comes in, and so you must stop what you're doing to check the new email and maybe even respond. Even if we don't respond right away, whatever we were just doing is interrupted.
That's just what we were talking about here. This is the opposite of focus, and it's probably the best example of the need to focus. So, here's one way you can get your head out of your inbox and into your actual work. Get your task list out. That's right, an email inbox is a bad to do list. Process each email, prioritize, and put them in an actual to do list. Then close your email and get down to the task and do that list.
Help much if we close our inbox, but we're constantly going back to it and checking our emails in between working on something. Try to do emails only at predetermined times. Set a time for them. Something like think that you'll only do emails like twice a day, 30 minutes each time, or whatever works for you. That way you can get things done without having to respond to each email as it comes in.
So you're at your desk, email closed, phone ringer off, trying to focus, but there's a lot of clutter on your desk, on your walls, or even your desktop. These are all distractions. The less clutter and the less distractions you have, the better you'll be able to focus.
Great. So listeners, declutter your desk. Clear your walls and your desktop, delete notifications, and get some nice music and good headphones.
But don't get carried away and try to do it all at once. You might get overwhelmed and end up accomplishing nothing at all that day. Instead, do one thing at a time. Take 10-15 minutes of a day to declutter one small area. That's definitely one step up.
Yes, that sounds like a great idea. But, focus and creating are about more than just disconnecting. You can be connected and focused too if you get into the habit of blocking out everything else and bringing your focus back to what's important.
Exactly, but that's come later. And let's do another segment for that. For now, listeners, practice disconnecting. Get away for an hour, focus on something important, or just relax and recharge. And we want to hear back from you. Tell us what your experiences are, and we'll feature you. Do call in or write to us. We would love to hear from you. And that definitely makes us going. So, listeners, do not think twice. Bombard us with emails, phone calls, and everything that you can ever think of. These are my contact details, and call us soon. So, friends, you can contact me in many ways. You can either email me at ogush@tarangamedia.com or send me a message on the Facebook page, which is facebook.com/pages/Ogush. Or you can leave me a message at my Skype ID, ogush.taranga. Welcome back from the break to the Inspiration Icon segment. Well, for all you sport enthusiasts, we have a treat. On today's show, my guest has been a Ranji Trophy player and now an entrepreneur in the financial services sector, an optimist, an energetic and thoughtful person, great with words and people. It is my pleasure to have on my show intelligence personified Varun Girilal. Welcome, Varun.
Thanks, Vinita. It's a pleasure, and thank you for having me on this.
So, Varun, you had a very different childhood, and you were away from the school for 70% of your time. You have represented your state Kerala right from under 13 to Ranji Trophy. Along with this, you also maintained a focus on academics. How has this whole experience of a professional cricketer been for you?
I think it was really fortunate to have this exposure to competitive sports. It gave you many interesting learnings, playing at a very young age, learning to cope with pressure, dealing with people. Gives you a lot of, I think sports and cricket in particular is a microsome of life. So there were quite a few important learnings which came in from there. So some of the key things which I remember was One was about playing it one ball at a time. Rather than getting overwhelmed too much about outcomes, just breaking things into the simple basics which you need to focus on. And it was a great experience traveling all over the country, meeting so many people. So I just found, I just feel that anyone, no matter what their ability or level, should seek this exposure in playing sport. Of course, not everybody may be lucky enough to play at a competitive level, but just the whole experience of playing with people gets you so many insights.
That's definitely well said. Taking one ball at a time, if you have something really overwhelming, breaking it down to the pieces and then tackling one piece at a time, I think that kind of a mental adjustment just takes you places. And it's definitely mind over matter. So, Sports Star, what can you share with the listeners? Your takeaway of being a national level player, and what can we as listeners learn from you and take it into our day-to-day life?
Well, I'm not sure, whether I can say my own personal example, but definitely observing. I've had the good fortune of playing with a lot of our so-called sports stars, and there are some really interesting things one can learn from them. So one is about the importance of discipline, and of course team spirit. And what you learn there is you can very often beat a much more fancied opponent by having a good team spirit and creativity. So these were 2-3 key learnings which I got.
Yeah, discipline and team spirit is definitely what every sports person says. So, did you actually take it into your day-to-day life?
Yeah, see, I think the key thing is to enjoy the process, and once you enjoy the process, then the discipline doesn't become that difficult. And I think it's also important to work towards having a well-rounded, balanced life, so that you're able to take breaks every now and then to refresh your mind, so that you can, because it's a long journey, and if you have to sustain, then you need to keep your mind fresh.
Absolutely, and I think taking those breaks definitely keeps you up, like, when you're getting bored or, if you've had a bad day. So, let me ask you, who is or who are your inspiration icons in cricket?
I think our very own, there's our very own MS Dhoni and of course Steve Waugh. So let me start with MS Dhoni first. I really like I think he personifies the true learner who's the true Indian leader who's very down to earth, very practical, and is very resourceful. I love his calm approach towards high pressure situations, and I think he has a really huge impact. A real good positive impact for our whole country when youngsters see the way he deals with pressure situations. It's a big challenge to manage such a diverse group. I think the Indian cricket dressing room is the most diverse, the most challenging environment to be in. You have people, you have a Sardarji in the team, you have a player from Kerala, you have a player from Bengal, so many different languages. There's just so much scope for misunderstandings and ego clashes, and to get this whole team together and make them into world beaters, I think is a real big achievement. The other person I really look up to is Steve Waugh, who has a great record in performing when the chips were down. And I've also had a chance to be part of a group who has interacted with him. I remember there's a line which he shared with our whole group, which I try my best to practice. So when we are having this interaction, somebody asked Steve Waugh, how is it that he's always able to perform when the chips are down? And he told one line which I always keep in mind, which is concentrate on the process and the outcome will take care of itself. So what he shared with the team is when he's facing an overwhelming situation, he breaks everything down to the basics, one ball at a time. Because when you think a bit too much about outcomes, you can get really feverish and lose your focus on the basics. So yeah, these are two sports people I look up to.
Those are really golden words from your role models, and especially Steve Waugh when he stresses that concentrate on the process, and
The
the
outcome will take care
outcome
of itself.
the outcome will take care of itself. I think that is so deep, because I think even in the Hindu mythology, it's said that just do your best, and don't worry, don't expect the results, just do your best, and the results are definitely going to follow. I
Yeah,
think.
actually, if you look at it, the root of it is in what we call the Bhagavad Gita, which says you have a right only to your actions and not to the fruit. So I think it is a derivation of that, if you really look at it. So, actually everything is there in our ancient Indian culture, and whatever we need. I think a lot of us have heard about uh, uh, that famous motivational speaker, right? His name is Deepak.
Deepak Chopra.
Deepak Chopra, who's made Indian culture, who's done quite a lot in America, simplifying Indian culture and setting it in the modern context. There's another famous writer called Devdutt Patnaik, who writes an article in Economic Times, and he also comes up with really interesting and profound observations linking the modern day challenges with mythology.
Deepak Chopra is one of my favorite authors. I think I have read his 7 steps of spirituality towards success. The way he brings spirituality in, actually achieving success in day-to-day life is, I think, what you were mentioning, and I completely concur with that. So, Varun, you were very cognizant at a young age. Very early on, you gave yourself a deadline, and then you said that you would switch careers if cricket was not going the way you wanted it. Um, so, that's how the financial career began. What fascinated you about numbers, and how was that journey like?
See, it's only the last 5 to 6 years that cricket has really become big beyond. Earlier it was only if you got into the Indian team you really had any semblance of a career. But today, even a good Ranji Trophy player has a decent opportunity to make a career out of it. So I was very clear that by 21, 22, if I was really not making an impact to get into the international level, there was no use kind of hanging around. What happened was, at a very young age, I started making a little bit of money from the game, and I got very interested in knowing how to invest it. And I started making small investments, and I found the whole process very fascinating. And over a period of time, I realized that if not for sports, then I need to, this is a really good line to get into. So by 21, 22, when I just decided that, okay, this is the right time for me now to move on to corporate life and build my career outside the game.
And I think that is such a, good takeaway, that you should go after your dreams, you should give it a try, but you should also not be restricted that that is the only way where you can find success, happiness, and fame. Because in the finance field, you've got so much of appreciation as you did in cricket. And after a strong foothold in the finance industry, you ventured into starting your own company. What are your takeaways for all the entrepreneurs listening to us right now?
I think, as you mentioned, the important thing is to look at it as a journey and as a marathon rather than just a sprint. You have to develop that equanimity to deal with all the ups and downs. Even if I take an experience which I just had very recently, a month back I was diagnosed with typhoid, and I've never been in such a bad health situation, and it really gets you down in terms of your motivation levels. And then I was just recovering, and this month our company had bagged a really good relationship and accounts which can be really transformational for our venture. So it's like you keep going through these ups and downs, and so you have to learn to keep your equanimity and keep the big picture in mind. I think today one big problem we have in the world is a lot of things have become too transactional, and I don't believe in a transaction. I believe that you need to look at the big picture and be long-term in your approach. Whatever you do should have sustainable value for all the stakeholders you're dealing with. And of course, very importantly, if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, it means having to make short-term sacrifices, which can give you a lot of gain in the long term potentially. And even if it doesn't happen, just the journey is going to leave you with invaluable learning. So yeah, I think trust, keeping the big picture in mind, learning to make short-term sacrifices, these are important things.
In fact, this is a perfect segue into my next question. I was going to ask you about, the phrase that you live by, the phrase that you've shared with me, givers always gain. I think that also comes from this whole philosophy of, short-term sacrifice and long-term gain. And you need to look at people not as a transaction, but as a investment, as a relationship that you're building. And especially in the finance field where, there's so much of, I can say like fraud or misleading or, kind of...
There's a lot of what you can call, there are too many hunters in the financial services sector, and what you really need are farmers, people who will have a long-term approach in the relationship. And not
I really like that analogy, farmers instead of hunters. So can you give me some example of your farming or, some examples of your philosophy that has helped you while you were giving, you gained a lot, or maybe gained after some time?
Yeah, before I started this venture and co-founded Mitras along with my partner Anup Bansal, I worked with some large organizations. I wouldn't want to share the name over here, but what happened on many occasions, given the trend in the industry, was very often you would get a lot of pressure to sell a product which may not be in the client's benefit, but would have given great benefits for you in terms of your career progression or great profits for your organization. So I always my approach was, if I'm in wealth management, then I need to be loyal the most to my client, and I shouldn't do anything which will affect his long-term benefit. And that was the approach I had with the set of clients who I was dealing with. And it may have resulted in missing out on career opportunities here and there, but in the long run, these very clients, they were the ones who got together and funded me when I wanted to start this venture. And I had a ready set of clients to start off with and who would be ready to refer me to others. So in the long run, it really played out well. There's another really interesting story I would like to share. I got to hear this from a forum called BNI, which our company is part of. And there's a story about this corn farmer in the US. He wins this award 4 years in succession for having the highest yielding corn. And he gets interviewed by this reporter who asks him, how have you gone about it? So he told, okay, I did this and I give away my corn seed to my neighbors. So when the reporter heard it, he was surprised. Like, you give away your prize-winning invention to others. So the farmer tells him that, no, you don't understand how corn works. There is cross-pollination which happens from the nearby fields. So if you need to develop the best corn possible, your neighbors around you need to have really good corn. So in the long run, if those around you benefit, you yourself get tremendous benefit in the long run.
I absolutely agree with you. I think collaboration definitely precedes over competition. And if you want to, win for yourselves, there's no point in the winner standing alone. But when you have your family, your friends also gaining while you are gaining, or when you give out, it's definitely going to come to you quadrupled, multiplied. And I think that's such a great philosophy philosophy, and thanks for sharing the story with us. This is the first time I am listening to this story, but it's a great...
Actually, it's quite popular in this forum, which I told you, called BNI. So I actually heard it there, and it really struck a chord in my mind.
Yeah, you have these aha moments sometimes, and these stories stick by you. But when you actually share it with others, it's definitely going to spread the cheer around. So, Varun, what is your stress buster? What do you do when you're in the low?
No, I think you're really lucky when you have a good social network. So, my close family, friends, partner, I think they've all always there for the long run. So I think even though when you're an entrepreneur, you tend to get really passionate, one should always keep in mind that you work for a living, but I think finally it's your family and close friends that you live for, and that's what gives you the quality of life. So it's great to have. I have a really good social network of close family, friends, and I like taking off every now and then, just recharging the batteries. Playing sport is always something which refreshes the mind. So these are things which help you bust the stress. I also have been practicing, a little bit of meditation over the last 15-20 years, and I think our whole Indian system has these really good breathing exercises which help you learn to control your emotions. And that's something, again, I got as a takeaway from sport, where they teach us, they train us on these very simple breathing exercises which help you maintain your peak performance and handle high pressure situations.
Yeah, I think meditation is definitely a mantra even I live by, and apart from that, just having your close friends and family is, I think it's just such a great supportive system, such a good backbone. So Varun, you've had success in cricket, success in your entrepreneurial journey. You've seen the lows, but you've definitely seen the highs. What is your life mantra, and I guess what is your message as you leave us? What is your message for the listeners?
Well, I think we spoke a lot about giver's gain, right? So I think the focus is always on just giving your best shot. You start feeling miserable and all that when you have that mindset of taking. So just be a contributor in whatever situation you are in. I think that's the key message. Like, that's what I've seen really work out. And do things without, you don't do that with an agenda. You just got to do it with the right spirit.
Thank you so much for being on this show. And listeners, if you want to know more tips about cricket or about finance or anything that Varun has spoken today about, do write to us. We will make sure that your messages do reach Varun. Thanks, Varun. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Vinita. I wish the whole team at Ogush all the best.
The Ogush Show with Vinita. Get inspired, get involved. On Taranga, it's your wavelength. Welcome back from the break. Wasn't the last inspiration icon just a treat to hear? Well, don't get stomach full, because we are giving you a double treat today. The next inspiration icon on the Ogush Show is a fashion designer by profession. She has the most pleasing voice, an absolute delight in person, the smart, pretty, visionary, an avid reader, and a passionate traveler. It is my absolute pleasure to have on my show the sweetest girl in the neighborhood, Aditi Bhupal Pradipak. Welcome, Aditi.
Hi, Vinita. Thank you for the lovely introduction and for having me on your show.
So, Aditi, you passed out from NIFT, one of the most prestigious schools in design in the country. And then you worked with Vijay Lakshmi Dogra, another big name in the fashion industry. You worked in the family business of textiles and started your own brand. Did you always know you wanted to be a designer? And what are your childhood memories around this?
For as long as I can remember, I've always loved drawing and painting. And I think it was a great outlet for my creativity. And coming from a textile background, I grew up amidst talks of color, texture, and design. I took art classes in school, and watercolor was one of my favorite mediums. I'd often be caught doodling in my textbooks, and I began toying with the idea of doing a course in animation, which I found fascinating. I slowly realized that a lot of my sketches were of clothes in one form or another, and I had this yearning to see my ideas come to life. I used to design a lot of my own clothes, which were really appreciated, and that's when a very close friend of mine suggested that I take this up professionally. My parents have always been very supportive of my dreams. So after high school, I went on to do a 3.5-year professional course in fashion design from NIST Hyderabad. The college really helped hone my skills and broaden my horizons, and I graduated with the award for Best All-Round Performance in Design. I went on to work in Delhi with designer Vijayalakshmi Dogra, who gave me a free hand. This helped me learn a lot on the job and put all my technical knowledge to practical use. I think work experience really helps in a line like mine because there's a lot that you can learn from trial and error as you go along. I later moved back to Hyderabad to work with my family business of textiles, and I launched my own label, Aditi.
Wow, best all-rounder performance in design. That must be such an high and such a inspiration for yourself to spear ahead. Another epitome of inspiration is your grandmother. Could you share some stories or moral values that you have imbibed from her that makes you the person you are today?
My grandmother, Vichita Bhupal, is a very creative personality, and she started our family business, which is a block and screen printing unit, over 45 years ago. She's been one of my biggest sources of strength and inspiration, and she's the one who's actually encouraged me to start my own business. If there's one thing I've learned from her, it's that hard work and perseverance takes you a long way. And she's always said that it doesn't matter if you make mistakes. The important thing is to learn from them and to forge ahead from there. She's always taught me to try something new without the fear of failing. And I have this really funny memory from when I was a kid. I was invited to this birthday party where we all had to take our Barbie dolls along, and I didn't own one at that point. But what I did have was this big old rag doll whom I named Zarina, and I loved that doll to bits. So my grandmother actually pushed me to take that doll along. So I walked into this birthday party feeling like the odd one out, and I walked away with the prize for the best doll. So I think what this experience taught me was that it's very important to be true to yourself. And I think in my line of work, especially where originality counts the most, that's very, very important.
Wow, that's such a cute story, actually. So, all your listeners, if you are having second thoughts about not owning something but taking part in something, do not think twice because what you have just might be the winning thing. So, Aditi, when you started your own brand, I'm sure you would have some more stories to share with us, which were bumps in the early stage. But actually it proved to be your strengths in the later.
Launching my own label, Vinita, was one of the most exciting moments of my life. I think the biggest challenge for me was finding like-minded workers who understood my ideas and concepts. I started off with just one tailor and a karigar, and my business has really grown since then. Having a technical background really helps me because I think it helps me explain my ideas better to the workers, especially my cutting master who executes things for me. And I've also learned along the way that apart from being able to create a beautiful outfit, marketing is a huge part of the fashion industry, especially if you want to make your line available nationwide or reach out to a larger clientele. I think that that's where that comes into play.
So these karigars that you had like a little bit of problem finding in the early stage, do you say that these people are really someone you bank on and you're proud of today?
Oh, yes, for sure. Because I feel like a lot of the times, even if I have a concept for embroidery in mind, I think it's through the cardigan that I'm able to execute that idea, or my cutting master who gives my, visions actual life. They're the ones who are able to give it form and meaning. So I think it's very important to have a good rapport with them. And it's taken me a couple of years to get them, or rather mold them to understand, what I say. And a lot of times, actually, because I travel a lot, I work on the phone with them. But we've come to that point right now in our professional relationship where there are certain, terms that I use, and they're just able to understand over the phone. And, we've coined certain embroidery, certain names and things, and they're able to immediately understand. So I think what's really important is, a good working relationship as well, because if they're happy, then it shows in their work.
Absolutely. I think teamwork is something which can never be understated. It's never a one-man show, even.
Definitely. Yeah.
So let's talk about your highs. What were the moments that drained all this hard work away? That moment that defines it all or makes it worthwhile.
I think for me, one of the biggest highs was when an outfit from the first collection that I designed sold. Because for me, it made all those years of hard work, late nights, long hours, it made all of it worth it. In fact, recently I was contacted by this girl in Australia, and she came across some of my work online. She's getting married soon, and she wanted me to design an outfit for one of her wedding parties. Now, the surprising part is she isn't Indian, neither is her fiancé, but she said that she identified with my color conceptualization. And for me, that was a real feather in my cap, because it was nice that my line is actually predominantly ethnic Indian wear, but it was nice that I was able to reach out to a clientele beyond our country.
That's definitely a feather in your cap, and I just feel so proud to know people like you whose work has not only been appreciated, but it's just so global. It's reached out to people far and beyond. In fact,
Thank you.
In fact, one of the concepts which I absolutely adore of yours is that you have come up with this concept of a lookbook where you want everyone, not just the skinny models, but people of all shapes and sizes to relate to it. So, could you talk a little more about that?
I recently launched my Facebook page, Aditi by Aditi Bhupal Pradeepak, and the concept of a different lookbook came into the picture, as I wanted people to see my outfits and immediately be able to visualize themselves in it. And although clothes look gorgeous on professional models, I think it sometimes makes us wonder whether we'll be able to carry it off ourselves. And my lookbook's gotten a great response, because I feel like the people that I've featured are a lot of my friends, family, and it could be the girl next door. It could have been your professor in college, or a friend of yours, who lives down the street from you. And I think it's nice that it's reaching out and appealing to a larger clientele. And I feel like the fashion industry is definitely making an effort to move away from the stereotypes. You often see a lot of daring silhouettes being featured on the ramp, but when you see them on the racks being retailed, very often actually the styles are tweaked to suit a more practical and I think more comfortable actually style line.
That's actually very insightful to know that the fashion industry is making a conscious effort to move away from the stereotypes. And in fact, I see so many models endorsing, the healthy eating campaign and the non-dieting campaign, and all these eating disorders. They actually are against it. That's actually I guess a good step for India or for the world in the larger perspective.
Yeah, because I think for a very long time now, people all over have been obsessed with the idea of size 0. And I think to get to that form, they put themselves through rigorous schedules, and I don't think that's always very healthy. And I think it's good for the fashion industry especially, to encourage people to be happy in their own skin, because I think they play a large part in influencing people about how they feel about themselves. And if we can make people happy about how they are as God willed them to be, or just be healthy at the end of the day, I think that's the amazing thing.
I really like that, happy in their own skin. So, listeners, you don't have to diet or, get extreme with your exercising and fitness routine. Just do what it takes to be healthy. But beyond that, I think being happy in your own skin is definitely the way to go. So, Aditi, let's talk about the time when you were called to be a part of the jury panel from the same college that you graduated. I mean, that definitely feels really good. Just being a part of the school that gave you so much, just giving it back. And what were your insights about the whole process, and what are your takeaways for the new batch of the students?
Well, Winnie, I was really honored to be asked back to be part of the jury panel. It didn't feel that that long back. I was right there studying, and, here I was a couple of years later back on the other side of the coin. And it just brought back so many memories, especially, all the hard work that goes in, because it's quite a, rigorous course. And I think it was really nice for the students as well to have somebody who had recently graduated on the jury panel, because, it helps them put their ideas forth, and you immediately understand and you're able to absorb, the depth of work that's gone into it. And I think the best thing about, being back there was I was able to have a chat with them after, we finished our introductions and things. I was able to tell them how much that you can just learn on the job. The college gives you the technical know-how, but it's actually being there, the trial and error process that helps you move along. And people skills is such an important part of the industry, because you need to have a good rapport with your clients, understand their ideas and their visions, and at the same time be able to put forth yours without hurting anyone's sentiments or, offending anyone. But at the same time, you want to find like that balance between design and conceptualization. And at the end of the day, I was able to tell them that if you love what you do, it really shows in your work.
I'm going to stretch that question a little more, because we want more tips from you for our listeners who are entering this field of fashion. I guess, could you talk to them a little bit about entering through formal education, or just entering the fashion industry without any formal know-how? What are the differences in both, and I guess your tips for both the categories?
Well, for those of you who are thinking about a formal education, I think that a degree in fashion is a great way to equip yourself with the technical know-how to function in this industry, especially as a design college gives you a lot of exposure. Doing internships prepares you for the real world to come, and it gives you a dose of what lies ahead. For those of you who are itching to dive into it headlong, there's so much you can learn working alongside a professional, because as I mentioned earlier, nothing levels to work experience. And I feel like even if you don't have a technical background, if you go and work with a design house, there's so much that you can pick up in terms of knowledge from somebody who's got a technical background, or if you get yourself a good cutting master who knows his, thing, then you'll really be able to execute your ideas well. Another way that you can keep yourself up to date on what's in vogue is by following a lot of fashion blogs, magazines. Some of my favorite blogs actually are High Heel Confidential, Pink Villa, and Stylish by Nature. All of these are always updating you on the latest fashion weeks and, which celebrity wore and the current trends. And I think they're a great way to keep a pulse on the market. Magazines such as Vogue and Harper's Bazaar are a nice way to keep in tune too. There's one show that I really like. It comes on Fox Traveler. It's called Style in the City. It features designers Reena Dhaka, Rocky S, and Ashish Soni. What I love about this show is that it shows the designer's journey right from, their inspiration to the conceptualization, the construction of the outfit to the finished product. And I think it's a great way for any young fashion student, whether you're going to get into a formal program or whether you just want to go ahead and, give it a whirl on your own. I think it gives you a dose or rather a peek at what's to come. So I think that's something that everyone should definitely tune into.
Wow, I just feel like I've just opened like a treasure chest of knowledge of fashion. That is so much of great information, just super information. So just for the interest of our listeners, could you just repeat to us the names of the fashion blogs and the name of the show that you watch on TV?
The blogs are highheelconfidential.com, pinkvilla.com, and Stylish by Nature. The show actually that I love is called Style and the City, and it's featured on Fox Traveler.
Wow, thank you so much, Aditi. I think that was absolute information. So let's talk about your inspiration icons from the industry. What inspires you?
Well, I think for me, I've always been taken with anything vintage, whether it's sepia photographs or antique jewelry, ancestral property. And I think that a lot of these elements really inspire me. One of my favorite designers is Sabyasachi Mukherjee. I think he has a beautiful way of infusing this old world charm into his outfits. Each and individual ensemble tells like a story by itself. It's a masterpiece on its own. And another designer whom I really admired is Rohit Bal for his, perfect fits and impeccable finish.
So let's talk about your passion for traveling and reading. What is your favorite book that you recommend to all of us, and your favorite destination?
One place that's my all-time favorite is Bali. I think it's apart from being a culturally rich paradise, it just has so much going on in terms of craftsmanship. They have really beautiful woodwork and a batik and tie and dye. And I think Indonesia is so close in culture to India itself. So that's one place that I loved visiting, apart from going and bumming around on the beach. I think especially for designers in any field, I think it's a dream come true.
And your book?
One of my favorite authors is Jeffrey Archer. He's been one person who's been able to, keep me intrigued no matter which piece of his that I pick up and browse through. I think his books always have this twist at the end. Another one that I really enjoyed reading, especially when I was growing up, was P.G. Wodehouse. He's never failed to tickle me. But one book that I recommend, that anyone pick up and read, especially if in the mood for a light piece, is this book called The Inscrutable Americans by Anurag Mathur. I think it's just one of the most hilarious stories I've read, and it's a story about this young Indian and his foray into America for the first time.
Yeah, I have read that book, and it's good humor. I think it's
it's
humor.
a hoot.
That's definitely a good recommendation. So Aditi, I don't want to let you go because I love your voice, but as all good things come to an end, so has your segment. So leave us with your life mantra, your message for the listeners.
For me, I firmly believe that everything happens for a reason. So ride the roller coaster that's life, go with the ups and downs, because I'm sure it's all for your own good.
Thank you so much, Aditi, for being on this show. And listeners, if you're entering the world of fashion, if you've been there for a while, or if you just want some tips and tricks, you know how to contact us. We will definitely get your message across to Aditi and make sure she answers all your questions. Thanks, Aditi, for being a part of this show.
Thanks so much, Vinita. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
And now it is the tweet section. The top 5 tweets for today that made my day, and I would like to share them with you because they are so inspiring. So the first tweet is by Hrithik Roshan. He is the famous Bollywood actor. He says, spasm in my back, long day in front, the bed on my left, the gym on my mind. What we choose, we become. Need proof? Off to gym, keep you posted. That's definitely the way to go, Ritik. Another tweet is from Tom Ziegler, and you can follow him at Tom Ziegler. Positive thinking will let you do everything better than negative thinking will. The next tweet is from my favorite author, Paulo Coelho, and you can follow him at Paulo Coelho. Find someone who makes you smile, because it only takes a smile to make a better day. And the next tweet is by Dan Rockwell, and you can follow him at Leadership Freak. You cannot get to the top by sitting on your bottom. Hashtag proverb, hashtag leadership. And obviously, I would not let you go without one tweet of my own. And this tweet is actually in response to one of my really close friends, Apurva. Kinda get that success, winning, or feeling good is not a one-day thing, not a destination, but a journey, a continuous process. At Apurva Shah. So friends, if you want to follow me, you can do that by following me on Twitter at Vinita Surana. And definitely follow us on the show, which is at the Ogush Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been an absolute wonderful 1 hour, and thanks so much for connecting again. So like I always say, take good care, goodbye, and stay inspired. The Ogush Show with Vinita. Get inspired, get involved. On Taranga, it's your wavelength.